Hello there. Salutare, sărut mâinile, bună ziua. We will keep this in English. First of all, thank you very much for Kuang Keng, Kuek, sir. Almost good to be with us. Keng is the data editor at the Pulitzer Center. He supports and mentors global investigative projects focused on topics like AI accountability, governance. He is based in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. I think we will have an interesting exchange of ideas that will be focused on what is similar and what is different in a disinformation space. We had a very pleasant conversation last evening, and I've discovered that we have a lot in common, even if we are thousands of miles apart. First of all, welcome to Romania.
Thank you. Thank you.
Keng will also have a presentation, and in order to keep this as efficient as possible, as insightful as possible, I will make a very short intro about the situation in our region and in Romania, with discoveries that we also see at Ethical Media Alliance with the techniques of disinformation, misinformation that are being used in our region. Then we will see what are the similarities, what are the differences, and the main focus, in our opinion, would be also useful to discuss a little bit more about what is efficient, what is working, what is doable to diminish this thing, and also to identify how we can work on the sustainability, meaning how we can finance operations against misinformation and disinformations, and also how we can sustain business models that are applicable also in our region, because in Southeast Asia in general, there are some examples of news outlets and websites or journalistic organizations that apparently manage to find ways to be sustainable and to be even profitable. So, to make the long story short, in Romania, as I shared with Keng the other night, we have this systemic problem. Only 3.5% out of the total content that is being consumed is basically public interest news. How we discovered that? We analyzed everything that was published in the Romanian on the Romanian websites 6 months, and unfortunately, less than 10% are news, and out of those news, less than 4% are public interest news, like news about economics, about politics, investigations, and so on. So we have a very hard job to do for the public interest context to actually reach people. Why digital is very important? Because as you can see here, this is a broad study, Romanian Bureau of Trans Audit Media. Almost 6 hours per day, the young people are staying online, mostly in social media, so they are not consuming web content, they are consuming algorithmic media-driven content. So around my age, we are equally disinformed on television and online, 3 hours a day, and the oldest we get, the more disinformed we are from TV channels. It's not only the case in Romania, it's a global thing. News articles are going down, social media, which is not a good medium for public interest content, and we will see why, is growing. because this is something we need to remember all the time. The current business model of the web is not based on positive social impact content. It's based on advertising. So everybody in this space is being incentivized to produce more content, not meaningful content, efficient content, content that is being consumed, because content means good support for advertising. So, in the last 20, 25 years, the time I was active in media, I was seeing that more and more content being automated, more and more tools are being used to make this web space more efficient from a commercial point of view, and the role of the journalists and humans is diminishing. Recently we see that basically the AI-generated content is increasing like hell. So we see this trend started in 2022, and now more AI-generated content is being consumed than human-generated content. We are seeing that in Romania also. So the machines are taking over. Because this is efficient, this is incentivized by all the ecosystem, and there are a lot of money here, as you can see, and the money are growing. And the truth is not an efficient support for advertising, not always. Bots are also there. We can see traffic that are being generated also by bots. So we have good bots, bad bots, and humans. Humans are losing ground, only 49%. So this is also something we should look at. So I guess nobody is picking their news from EMAG. But the paradigm today is e-commerce driven, because we are using the wrong tool for the wrong purpose as we speak. We are using algorithmic media to grab our informations. But algorithmic media is not designed for our proper information. It's designed to increase the conversion for e-commerce. Okay, you have in this ecosystem, everything is set up in the following under the following logic: the highest reach possible at the lowest price possible for producing content and for paying for ads. Okay, so the less you pay and the biggest reach you get, the more efficient the ecosystem is. But this is a setup that is not designed for our public interest information. It's designed for e-commerce players, okay? So basically, truth became somewhere very gray and in the background. And what is sensational and not boring is efficient for this ecosystem. So that's why the disinformation equation is very complex, because we are talking about money, we are talking about business, we are talking about power, we are talking about using algorithmic media to design our perceptions, to sell ideologies, not only phones or Black Friday promotions. And yeah, it's complicated also because our emotions are still from Paleolithic, and the technology is very advanced. And unfortunately, our institutions are not adapted for that. And we saw that in Romania, where we had all the problems. And one of the systemic problems I think we forget about is the fact that the algorithms and the social media algorithms are not designed with a constructive approach in mind. And this piece of interview from Sean Parker, one of the founding presidents of Facebook, I think is relevant.
When Facebook was getting going, I had these people who would come up to me and they would say, you know, I'm not on social media. And I would say, okay, you know, you will be. You don't have to participate, but, you know, we'll get you eventually. That thought process was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. And that means that we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And that's going to get you to contribute more content, and that's going to get you more likes and comments. I mean, it's a social validation feedback loop that it's like it's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. And I think that the inventors, creators, and it's me, it's Mark, it's the Kevin Systrom at Instagram, it's all of these people, understood this consciously, and we did it anyway.
The main idea is that the design of the feed is to drive conversions, not to be informed. Also, another idea I think we need to think about is that the business model is also a business model that is monetizing our dependencies. It's obvious already that we are dependent on newsfeed and everything algorithmic. So the same is happening in other industries like gambling and the tobacco industry or sugar-based foods. Everything that is exploiting a vulnerability for profit should be considered in the same category. So I think somehow social media and algorithmic media escaped from this, but maybe together we can make this more obvious. It's not the first time in our history when something that is very bad for everybody was considered cool. In the 60s, the 70s, the tobacco advertising was very cool, and we had influencers, like even doctors that were recommending how to smoke and what to smoke. We saw during the pandemic why this is wrong, because all the big platforms monetized our fears, our disputes online. We see that during the pandemic was also an infodemic. So basically the profits of the big platforms increased like hell, and then they come back to their normal growth. So why bother to combat misinformation if misinformation is very profitable for you as a big tech company? Okay, you can declare that you do that, but in reality, this is what is happening. Big tech providers are offering tools to predict how much money you will gain if you produce content in different categories. So everything is being pushed. Okay, produce more quantity, and this will help you. So basically, monetizing hate is a very profitable business in our world today, and maybe together we can find solutions to diminish this. In Romania, we are a playground for different new techniques. During this electoral campaign, we saw that. So basically, using Google display advertising, for example, fake advertising with fake content, pushed users to fake websites with fake placements, with the fake products that are not existing. But why this is very dangerous? Because behind that is technology that is profiling people. So basically, if you believe that a tea can cure cancer, or if a magical stone can bring your wife back, you will most probably believe also that Putin is a good guy or European Union is a bad idea, So the most vulnerable people were targeted with those campaigns, and then those campaigns were used in a different kind of campaign, as we all saw, and our colleagues from independent media discovered during the campaign. This is an example of a commercial offering that is on the market, on the black market of political communication. So basically, somebody from a digital agency sent me a presentation on fake different pages on Facebook or other platforms, and examples on how profitable and efficient those campaigns are. This is one example. For example, you can see prices, what's the reach for each thing, and how a successful campaign that is recirculating content that is being paid by somebody can be utilized in using all those pages. So I think an important idea to have in mind is that journalism is a different thing, totally different thing than algorithmic media, and that content plus advertising is nothing but journalism. Because journalism doesn't mean content that is made for ads. Journalism means content that is made for people, that is made for our societies and for a better democracy. Journalism means a lot of work, a lot of fact-checking. You can see here a piece of story that was given to us by our colleagues from Snoop. How much work is behind such investigation compared with the TikTok that is made in 10 seconds spreading misinformation. So unfortunately, the context is that the digital advertising and the digital media industry somehow came to the conclusion that the truth is not efficient and is boring. So we have to ask ourselves how democracy and a free market can work if everything becomes a contest of who can best manipulate the algorithm. Because we are in this situation now. Basically, the winners of this attention economy are the ones that are less ethical. So the higher your ethical standards are, the lowest your profits are. This is the... And of course, we see all the effects. People are already saying that the news are not okay because they are influencing their mood. They are avoiding news, and they are right, because if only 4% out of the total news that is reaching you is legit news, everything else is made for increasing your profit. A lot of fabricated news or fake news, or not fake already, alarming and engaging news are out there. So people are running from that. What reach still journalism is very little. So in Romania, our estimation is that less than 10 million euros out of the total market is reaching journalistic outlets. So this is less than 1%. So we as a society and as responsible companies, we need to act. We have also this problem with funds that are being paid for propaganda. And guess who's cashing in those money? Those money are not cashed in by the PR agencies or communication specialists that are promoting constructive messages from the political parties. No, those money are also in the black market, most of them. They are being used to create fake pages, to promote dangerous ideas. The first phone calls I received after the electoral campaign where Mr. Georgescu apparently almost won was from colleagues from the industry asking who did the campaign. We want to work with them. And there we go.
The key issue is that democracy is based on trust, whereas dictatorship is based on terror. If you systematically destroy trust in institutions, destroy trust in the media, in academia, in the courts, and so forth, some people think that this is liberating the people so that from these institutions.
Right.
It's not. When you destroy all trust, the only thing that can still work is a dictatorship. Right. So this is what would-be dictators do. They systematically destroy trust. And the other thing to realize is that the vast majority of information is not truth. A key misconception, especially in places like Silicon Valley, is to equate information with truth. Most information is junk.
So how can we act today? We at Ethical Media Alliance started to build an ethical display advertising network. We are trying to push money from the shitty websites to the legit websites. And with God's help and some good people from the commercial market, we will manage to do that. We want to promote content good for democracy and for people, not for algorithms. We have solutions like display advertising solutions, content solutions, co-production with ethical brands. ING is one of the partners in this project, so we thank them for continuing that. Also, we develop some micro payments and micro subscriptions with PressPay. We recommend you to visit presspay.ro and see what's all about. And that's it. This is the situation in Romania in under 10 minutes, I hope. Let's see what we can learn from Malaysia and from Southeast Asia. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone, and thanks for having me. So I am going to speak a lot because they flew me all the way, 17 hours. So I will have to talk a lot. Just a little bit about myself. My full-time job is with the Pulitzer Center. So the Pulitzer Center is a non-profit organization based in the US, but I am based in Malaysia. We fund journalists. We support journalists to do reporting on underreported issues. I don't think we have many fund journalists or projects that we support in Romania. I don't remember any actually. So after this, if you are interested to do, know more about the funding opportunities at Pulitzer Center, please talk to me after this. But I wear many hats as well, not just at Pulitzer Center. I'm also the founder of DataN, which is my own boutique consultancy. I have been doing a lot of data journalism training, fact-checking training, and currently focus more on using AI and also the investigation of influence operation and FIMI. I'm not sure whether FIMI is a term used here. It stands for the Foreign Information Manipulation and Interference, FIMI. So I have been doing some investigation on the disinformation or the propaganda campaign in Malaysia. So there are two examples here. The first one is that was in 2021 during the pro-democracy protest in Hong Kong. That was before, that was when Hong Kong was still free. After that, what happened was the crackdown by the Chinese Communist Party. And after that, we know what is happening right now in Hong Kong. So I did an investigation about how the disinformation around that protest came all the way from China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan to Malaysia. And then recently, I did another investigation into the pro-Russia propaganda in Malaysia, but specifically targeting Chinese-speaking Malaysians. So in Malaysia, we are a multi-ethnic country. We have over half of population there are Muslim, and we have about 20% of Chinese-speaking Malaysian. I'm one of them. If you don't see I'm a Chinese, but born in Malaysia. We look at the operations, how the disinfo from Russia amplified by Chinese media and then came to Malaysia, right? Again, and it's just not just Malaysia, but also the Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and Philippines, all the Chinese diaspora communities in that region, right? So these are some of my background, the things that I've been doing. And I also helped to build Malaysia's first alliance of fact-checking. It's like a coalition for fact-checkers, right? So I can share more about that later. Okay, just to address the questions by Dragos about the similarities and what is different, is that we have the same problem of the abuse of social media platforms in that region. When I'm saying that region, I'm referring to Malaysia, Indonesia, and Philippines, right? These are the three largest market in Southeast Asia. And these are also one of the, I think it's the countries with the highest number of users of social media. For example, Indonesia and the Philippines, they are one of the largest market of Meta and TikTok, right? So, and Philippines has the role as a innovator of how you can abuse social media. So what happened when Maria Ressa, I think everyone knows Maria Ressa, she started the Rappler, which is a news organization in the Philippines. So Rappler was the one that have been warning everyone about the danger of disinfo spreading on Facebook. That was many years ago. And eventually what happened in the Philippines spread to the whole world, right?
This is very interesting because at the beginning, Maria Ressa was working with Meta and tried to push public information content using Meta. I remember because, disclaimer, I work at Meta during that time, and I was seeing Maria Ressa being invited by Meta at internal conferences and spreading the knowledge about how Facebook can be used to empower journalism. It's very interesting how things changed 10 years ago or so.
So to be fair, right, Meta or Facebook is not always evil, right? Back in early 2000s, when we started to use Facebook in Malaysia and Indonesia and in that region, right, we used this tool as a way to fight for our freedom of expressions, actually. Because our mainstream media was heavily censored and controlled by the state, social media is actually where you're able to find facts and independent journalism. And that's why when it first started, we worked closely with Facebook and Google. And what happened was that slowly after what happened after Cambridge Analytica, of course, then people start to scrutinize Facebook more. And Facebook decided to pull out from journalism, if you remember that, right? The negotiation with Australia and after that, Canada. So they pull out and we lost the kind of collaboration with them. And we also saw that they became more and more toxic for journalism. But we still maintain our relationship with Google until Trump was elected. After Trump was elected, Google saw that the atmosphere in Washington has shifted. They follow. So now they are also pulling their fund away from journalism in Southeast Asia. So we are now, and plus the pulling away of fund by USAID. So now we have the same problem as everyone else. We are lack of funding. We are also looking for funding to fund all these different initiatives, right? So that's the situation there. But if you look at Indonesia and the Philippines, there are some latest insights or trends that are coming, which is interesting. There were two elections, right? One election elected Prabowo, the new president of Indonesia. And there was another earlier election that elected Marcos Jr., the president of the Philippines. They used two different tactics to win their elections, both using social media. In Philippines, the Marcos family, they used the social media to spread disinfo to whitewash their family history. His father, Marcos, the old Marcos, used to be a dictator in the Philippines, right? And through the People Revolution, he was toppled. And after several decades, now his son made a comeback. But during the campaign, his son, or the campaign, tried to package the years when the father was in power as the golden age of the Philippines. Contrasting, contrasting with the current economic situation in the Philippines, right? They were saying that during that time, under the Marcos rule, economy was much better, right? So that was one, and he won.
This is a similarity also with Romania, because one of the main direction that is being used in strategical communication of the conservatives, let's say, is that communism was bad, but a lot of good things also happened then.
Yeah.
So it's interesting similarity.
I think the major narrative by all these dictators.
It's something like, okay, it was a dictatorship, but was also very good.
Exactly. We are dictators, yes, but people live in, better, than democracy. But in Indonesia, we saw a very different pattern coming out. Prabowo, he was not the real dictator. He was the general under the dictator of Suharto, right, in the New Order era, which was in the 90s and 80s in Indonesia, right? So he was the general that cracked down, arrested, and murdered the activists, the journalists during that time. And now he's the president. So how did he win the election? The tactic, the campaign was described as Kuek aggression. Kuek in the sense that it's really cute. I can show you some of his campaign material. Here. All right. These are all his campaign material, right? So package him as a very cute, nice, grandpa figure, right? And who like to dance a lot, okay? And you see these memes going on online and offline. If you just scroll, you can see how many of them, right? This is how he won the election. There was nothing to fact check. Because how do you fact check a Kuek character? There's nothing to fact check. There's no policy debate, right? Before this election, the previous presidential election, there was a lot of disinformation and tension about religion and ethnic groups, right? But in this election, there was no issues. Because everything is about, this is a nice president and the vice president candidate. Vice president is the son of Jokowi, who is the former president who just stepped down. So the former president endorsed Prabowo and sent his son to run as the vice president, right? And the previous president, Jokowi, was actually a rival of Prabowo. Prabowo lost the election to Jokowi in the last presidential election. After that, somehow, they made good friends. Okay? Prabowo became the defense minister in the cabinet of Jokowi. And then he succeeded Jokowi, bringing together Jokowi's son with him. So there's actually no strong opposition. That's one. And the whole campaign run on this kind of Kuek aggression strategy. And this is what we are worried that this will happen in other countries. They don't talk about.
And it's also a positive approach. Like we are united, no more opposition. Everybody is no. It's like there is any opposition anymore in Indonesia.
Yep. It builds on the narrative that the world is a mess, right? We have a lot of conflicts. So for this election, let's talk about unity. Let's talk about Kuek presidents, right? Let's not talk about conflicts, right? Let's be united, Indonesia. And this is how they won the election. And interestingly, after he won the election, the next few days, he changed his total outfit. He wears back his military uniform and appeared in front of the TV, of the media again, right? Because he has won. So he will he wants to become the usual Prabowo, right?
What was the danger to fight with for this unity? Because we have a little bit of similarity in Romania with the coalition that is a little bit forced against the danger of Romania exiting European Union and so on and so forth. What is the main danger that united those forces that before were competitors?
I think when you start to challenge this kind of narrative, you are being criticized or you are creating disunity among us. You are trying to split the people, right? So this is actually something that is very hard to fight against, right? And of course, why he did this because he wanted to avoid all his bad history of human rights abuse in Indonesia. And then they thought that, instead of, so we can see that they had two different, very, very different tactics. In the Philippines, they whitewash it with disinfo, with fake news. But in the Indonesian, they just avoid it. And they use a totally different way to campaign, right? But on both tactics, we kind of think that fighting against disinfo, it's easier because you're able to argue. You're able to say that this is wrong because this is what you did, blah, 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 right? But for this, it's like, this is wrong because you're too cute. It's very hard to argue, right?
I can see Nico Shore in this.
Right. So that is then the situation that in that region, and also we of course face the Disinfo campaign from China and Russia, two superpowers. And if you like Malaysia, we are a small country. We relies a lot on international trade, so we are trying to play this delicate balancing between U.S. and China, China/Russia. Recently, like this year, our Prime Minister visited Russia, met with Putin, shake hands, and he said that we want to join BRICS, the international coalition built by China and Russia, BRICS. And 2 weeks ago, Trump came to Malaysia, and we signed a tariff deal with the US, basically selling away a lot of our interests. So you can see that our government is struggling to try to be good friends of both sides. And when they are doing this, they are being attacked by both sides.
Can you maybe explain a little bit why Russians and the Chinese are trying to influence Malaysia? Because I think in Romania is clear.
Yeah.
Russia will love Romania to exit European Union and maybe to go back in their influence
Sure.
circle.
If you're not sure where is Malaysia, I don't expect everyone to know where is Malaysia. You can open up your Google map, check where Malaysia is, and you will see that we are in a region where if you want to do business between the east and west, you will have to pass through the Malacca Straits, right? Which is Malaysia, Indonesia, and Philippines. You have to pass through, and there's a South China Sea, right? Russia got their oil, China got their oil from Iran using that road, right? The dark fleet that carries all the Iranian sanctioned oil all the way to China. And Russia also do the business with India through the same routes, right? So there is geographical strategy involved. And the second thing is that Southeast Asia is one of the biggest export market of China. So China do a lot of business in Southeast Asia. And now the US is also eyeing our rare earth minerals in Southeast Asia. So we become the flashpoint of these superpowers. So we don't have much business with Russia, except that Russia use our waters to do all the hanky-panky trades, okay? But we do have a lot of business investment with China. China is our biggest trade partner. And in this case, when Russia is trying to influence what is happening in Malaysia, they don't do it directly, actually. They do it via China. So China, the state media, would amplify whatever propaganda from Russia and trying to influence the audience in Malaysia and, of course, in Southeast Asia. And the difference, I think, here with Southeast Asia is that we don't know much about Russia. We don't know nothing about Eastern Europe. We do not know your language problems, your history, your culture. So when we talk about Russia, we only know that, okay, it's a huge country. People are very white there. And it's cold, right? And we don't buy a lot of things from Russia, so we know nothing about Russia. We don't see them a lot on our news before the war happened. So when you talk about the argument that, okay, Ukraine is supposed to be a part of Russia because there are Russian-speaking people in Ukraine, blah, blah, blah. People don't give a S, right? People don't understand. So when they are doing this disinformation campaign, they'll have to frame it in a way that people understand. And how they frame it, it's very easy and it's very straightforward. This is the China-Russia versus the hegemony of the US, because US is bad. And why US is bad? Because US is killing Palestinians in Gaza. So why we support Palestine? Because we are Muslim. Malaysia is a Muslim majority country. Indonesia is a Muslim majority country as well, right? Philippines is very different. Philippines is a very close ally of the US. Okay. So in Indonesia and in Malaysia, Basically, they are saying that if you support Palestine, if you support our Muslim brothers in the Middle East, you will have to go against the US and the evil US allies, EU and UK. So in that sense, we have to support China and Russia. Then we are able to create a more just and equal world rules, right? So we don't get US to be the superpower police that are trying to dominate the whole world. That's why we have to support Chinese and the Russians. If we go a little bit more than that in the sense of culture, then of course in Southeast Asia, we have a lot of Chinese diaspora. They migrated to Southeast Asia during the Second World War and even before that. For example, I am the 4th generation of Chinese in Southeast Asia. And I born speaking Chinese. I watch Chinese shows, I read Chinese websites, things like that. Same as other Chinese in this region. So we have a very strong cultural connection with China. So when China tried to shape the views of this Chinese diaspora outside of China, they are playing that card. They are playing the card to say that, okay, now your ancestor country, China, is rising, right? This will be great for all the Chinese diaspora outside of China. And because this Chinese diaspora community has been marginalized or bullied by the indigenous, like the Malays or the Indonesians, right? All this time, they actually feel very proud, especially the older generation, that China is now a rising world power. And because of that, it's very easy for them to receive whatever Chinese, the Communist Party is trying to push out.
So what do you think if your family had to choose between China and US, what they will vote for?
Most of my parents' generation, they support China without saying. And you do not want to argue with them because it's very hard. It's very hard.
We know.
Yeah. And right now, the China, they are not just doing propaganda on social media, but they are giving scholarships. They are arranging or sponsoring media visits to China every year. They invite dozens of journalists to go to China to visit, to look at how modern, how advanced China is today. And they sponsor all these trips every year. And also they have this content sharing with local publications.
It's very interesting because China is somehow approaching this propaganda in a positive note somehow. In Romania it's the same. We have an influencer that is a Chinese guy. He just announced that he will open up a tourism agency to show to the Romanians how beautiful China is and how the future looks like. So everything is on a constructive and positive approach somehow.
I think it's both, right? When they are on their official channels, if you look at the embassy's Facebook pages, they always push video about how beautiful China is, how efficient they are. They are able to build a hospital during pandemic in 2 weeks. You all saw that story, right? And they're able to build the tallest building in 3 months, 6 months, right? So they keep pushing these stories, but once in a while, you'll see they also do disinfo aggression against other countries. One example is when Japan, after the earthquake, that bring down their nuclear plants, right? After they clean up the nuclear plants, they have to release the wastewater, the radioactive wastewater. That was when China went out of a full-scale disinfo campaign in Southeast Asia. Because if Japan released the water, it will go to Southeast Asia, right, to the south. And they went out with a huge disinfo campaign to claim that the Japanese radioactive wastewater is going to pollute all the waters here, and your seafood, the seafood that you get from your waters, will become radioactive. And they had a very aggressive campaign on that. And they themselves even banned the import of Japanese seafood. But after that, they removed the ban just after a few months. Quietly, of course. Yeah. Still, Japan is still releasing the wastewater, because they're going to do that for many years to come, right? But China is now buying the Japanese seafood as usual. So we can see that they are hypocrite, right? Yeah, but when that happened, they also have a very aggressive disinfo campaign against Japan. Yeah. And on the war between Ukraine and Russia, actually in Malaysia, as well as in Indonesia, there are more people supporting Russia than Ukraine. Yeah, sorry to say that. Because of, of course, because of the information coming from China, coming from Russia, and we don't get much news from the EU or the Europe. I think that is something that is, just now somebody talked about, the previous speaker talked about, we can have a stronger EU media, right?
I think that is also because we are a democracy and we don't do, or legally we cannot do shitty things like misinformation campaigns. This is a very hard dilemma. How you can fight with unethical misinformation techniques using a democratic, open, and blah, blah, blah methodology. You cannot do that. It's like, okay, somebody's entering your house and threatening you with a knife. You need to sit and, okay, what's your problem? Maybe we will call a psychotherapist to solve your problem. No, you need to take the knife also. So how we can exit this dilemma?
I'm thinking because if you look at international media, if you look at all these smaller countries like us, Indonesia or Malaysia, right? We do not have reporters outside of our country. We don't send people to cover the war in Ukraine, for example. We don't send people to cover the UN General Assembly, right? Because we don't have the resources. So we rely a lot of information from international media. But if we look at international media right now, who are there? You have CNN, okay, fine. You have AP, AFP, Reuters. Most of them are in the US, right? And then on the other side, you have CGTN from China. You have Xinhua Net from China, okay? So when we are covering the international news, right, we can only pick from these two sides. It's either US or China for Malaysia media, and same for Indonesian and Philippines. So in that case, when you're picking news from the US media, people think that there are bias because we have a very strong anti-US sentiment in our region because of what is happening in Palestine, right? Then the media, in order to balance it, of course, they do not want their readers to, criticize them for using too much information from the West. They try to balance it by using information from China. And if you ask them like, okay, can you get information from a third party? They would tell you there's no third party. We hope we can get something from the Europe. We hope we can get something from Australia. But they don't have very strong international media, right? Deutsche Welle, I don't think it's popular there, right? The most popular will be CNN and BBC. But BBC UK is seen as a very close ally of the US, as usual. So I actually hope that if there is a stronger European media that has the kind of international appeal, like CNN, like BBC, we probably have a more balanced in sources of international news, which can shape the opinions, of our local audience. Right. Is it time for us to move into some solutions? Yeah. So I'm not here to tell you that this is what you should do, but in my years of work combating disinfo, we basically built some models that we think is working in our region. So some of them are here, right? I'm trying to, and you don't get a lot of information online because they don't do a very good job of sharing their knowledge and experience, right? So when it comes to dealing with disinfo, one of our working model is to build alliances. So there are 3 alliances in the region. Cek Fakta is in Indonesia, the first one. Cek Fakta means facts.
It's like factual in Romania, for example.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So check your facts. The second one is check.ph. That is actually the Filipino way of saying check. Check.ph. And the last one is called Jom Check. Jom is like, come on, Let's check. Okay, this is in Malaysia.
Looks like a lollipop brand or something. Yeah.
We try to make it cute, you know.
You learn from Poboa.
Yeah. So that the sequence is check fakta started first, followed by check pH, and then we model after them to start jump check. And the similarities, you know, between these alliances is that it consists of media outlets, not just media outlets, but also academics, universities, CSO or NGOs. And we also include content creators, the influencers, right? Don't kick them out of the formula, you know. Sometimes they can be very good. So we include them. We have some technology experts as well. And so how we work is that we establish these alliances during election. Because election is when the bad actors put in a lot of money to create disinfo. That is the time when fact-checking or when any counter reaction is the most needed. So it's always during election. And also election is the time where it's easier for us to get funding, right? You want to get foreign funding, you have to tell them this election is important, the most important election in the history of the country. And then you try to pitch, okay? So we don't just do fact-checking, but we also share our content and resources. Because fact-checking is something that most media outlets hate to do. Why they hate it? Because first, it is needed, but it doesn't make money, right? Everyone kind of think that we need to do some fact-checking because there are a lot of disinfo, but fact-checking is the kind of stories that don't really sell, right? So, and then you end up different media outlets fact-checking the same thing. So in this case, what we are trying to do is that we ask everybody to come, form an alliance, and we say that, you know, this alliance is good for you because when we get one disinfo, we just need one of our members to fact-check. After they fact-check it, they share with everyone. But you are free to take it. If you do not want to take it, you want to fact-check yourself, go ahead. Nobody is stopping you. So we do this kind of content sharing so that we reduce the cost of fact-checking, right? Because after some years, we realized that we are all doing the same thing. We are all fact-checking the statement of this same politician. So why don't we just do it together? And we share the content. And not just the content, but also we share the resources, right? So if one member fact-check it, the other can publish it, which means you can free up more resources for other kind of reporting. And we do capacity building, right? We do training of fact-checking. If you want to become our member, you want to know what is the right way to do fact-checking, we train you. We also set up a standards. It's that when you do a fact-checking, what are the standards? And the last one is that all these three alliances were funded by the big tech companies. And you guess it, Google. Google funded it when they started.
And Google is still founding or not really?
Yeah, so I said were, right?
All right.
Check Fakta in 2018. Yeah. Check PH 2019. Jump Check slightly late, 2022. They all started with money from Google. And now they all lost their funding from Google. Google pulled out all the funding for all three alliances. So now we are trying to raise fund from different funders, still foreign funders, smaller one. You are talking about IMS, Canadian Embassy, the Danish Embassy, right? But one thing that I think we learned through these three alliances is that if you work with universities, because university, they already have their own fund for their own activities, right? So if you are able to get universities to manage your alliance, you are able to move some of your operational costs to the universities. So for example, when we are not active during non-election seasons, the universities is the one that is running the alliance. They get their students to do fact check, produce content, right? And they don't pay their students because it's part of their coursework.
How about private companies, local entrepreneurs, so and so forth? They are not interested in supporting that?
I think in some countries, like the Philippines, there are some private companies supporting. In Malaysia, we don't have companies. So what is happening, I think, in our countries is that the companies, they don't want to get near anything controversial, including politics.
You mentioned also the role of the religious groups, if you can detail a little bit, because I think it's very exotic. In Romania, the church is on the other side of the
Right,
story.
coming to that. So let's jump a little bit and we look at the Malaysia job check. As I mentioned, we have the students as our fact checkers during non-election time. So that is able to help us to remove a lot of our costs, right? And the interesting thing is that we also do the media literacy education at grassroots organizations. We are talking about the mosque. Mosque with the religious organizations. We talk about public housing, like those public housing, with their resident associations. We actually run programs with them. Clinics, we also run programs with public clinics. But of course, we don't talk about geopolitics. We talk about health misinformation, right, with clinics. Senior citizens, youth clubs, right? These are some of the organization that we work with. When we are not doing fact checking, we do a lot of media literacy. You can see the program is called Click, K-L-I-C-K, Click. This is when we ran it in the campus. This is with this is in a small island, right, with some resident association. This is for the mosque committee, right, the Islamic Mosque Committee. Yeah. So we basically we don't push sensitive content in the sense of telling them that, okay, the far-right extremist Islamist is bad, is evil. We started with, less controversial content. For example, health misinformation, which is a huge thing during COVID and after COVID as well. And now we also have a lot of misinformation about geopolitical issues, okay, which is also less sensitive for religious authorities. Well, we don't talk about the religious issues. In Malaysia, we have the extremist far-right Islamists. They are dominating TikTok, spreading out a lot of hate speech and disinfo against the non-Muslim. And they'll try to push the Islamic Party to win the next election. So we have an Islamist party that is far-right, and they, same as, similar to what is happening in Europe, right? The far-right is gaining an upper hand in the campaign of social media, right? So these are where we are able to make some inroads into these grassroots. And most of them are, they are not the kind of audience that the mainstream media usually targeting. Journalists don't talk to them because they are seen as more marginalized group, right? The public housing, you are talking about the hardcore poor communities in those areas. The mosques, they are more conservative, religious, right? So these are the organizations that usually, if you are a urban media outlets, you don't engage with them. So you might ask, like, how did we come up with the idea of engaging with them? Because you remember our alliance is not just media outlets. They also consist of NGOs and academics. And that is how, through the NGOs, we are able to make some inroads in these communities. So I think that's another lesson that we learned. If you put together a bunch of journalists, they will keep talking to the audience they like, which is the urban, middle-class, elite readers, right? But if you put them together with academics, with NGOs, you might be able to reach out to different audiences. The same in Philippines. In Philippines, they have 24 partners, including some NGOs. And I remember during election, the NGOs operate their own WhatsApp groups. For example, you have WhatsApp groups of the church, you have WhatsApp groups of the mothers group, things like that. So they are able to amplify the content produced by the media into these groups through their WhatsApp networks. So the alliance is not just to share resources and content, but also to amplify the content. because you are able to, through these partners, you are able to reach people that you usually don't manage to reach. I want to show this picture because during non-election time, we also do, this is in Indonesia, they do pre-bunking campaign. So just now we talk about, fact-checking is not effective. I think after so many years, we all realize that. You fact-check something after that happened, it happened. Nobody actually, very few people read, that's one thing, right? The second thing is that the harm has been done, the damage has been done, right? So where they do a lot of pre-bunking campaign, which is to immunize the communities, to show them, okay, when you receive information, what are the things that you should watch out for and things like that. So in Indonesia, the scale is very big. They have more than 100 partners, and they have trained thousands of fact checkers, and they run campaigns in a lot of small communities because Indonesia has a lot of islands. They have thousands of islands, and each islands you have small communities. They're able to spread their activities into all these small islands and do a lot of activities. They even have a series of short drama that is targeting housewives. So dramas that housewives love to watch. They make dramas, but the dramas is all about disinformation. Yeah, so trying to educate the housewife. So they have very specific tactic to address different communities. Yep, so these are some of the values, lessons that we learned, right? So cost effective and better visibility and public trust. Public trust is a huge issue in our region because as very similar to other parts of the world, our mainstream media doesn't get very high trust from the public. People don't trust them. So if you form an alliance with the academics, right, it somehow gives you more credibility. It's weird to say that journalists have no credibility. That's why you need some academics to get you some credibility, which doesn't really make sense. Right? Sadly, that is the situation. So getting the cooperation of academics actually help us to build some credibility, more credibility. And I mentioned just now the content amplification. And they are more attractive to funders. I think this is very important because if you approach the funders one by one, each media outlets, right? It's very hard for the funders to support you. But if you approach them as a group, as an alliance, I think you have a much better chance of getting something from them. And it's easier for them to manage, right? They can just give fund and they want to see impacts. So if you're able to come together first and then apply for funding, I think it's easier to get that. In the past, we were able to get Google to fund us. The condition is that Google told us that if you're able to get a group of media together, then this is something that we can support. And that's why, one of the reasons that pull the media together. Better access to big tech and also government. So I want to show the pictures here is that the first one, our co-founders, they were featured on the country's most popular news program because it's an alliance. It's not just individual newsroom. The second one is that we were able to get a dialogue with the government. This is in a government office with the representative of Facebook. He flew all the way from Singapore to meet with us. And we're able to get, some kind of backdoor access to Facebook and TikTok during the election, which means that if we flag a post or a content, it gets expedited to them. And they are able to shut that or remove that content in a much faster way. So we are able to secure that kind of backdoor access during the elections. What else? This one, we managed to meet with the Deputy Minister of the Communication, who is asking us for help, actually. The government is like, we don't know what to do with all this disinfo. Maybe you can give us some ideas. Because again, we are big enough. Right, and I think the long-term benefits is that you're able to build a community. So now we have a WhatsApp groups, which allows us to exchange information. And we are able to facilitate a lot more collaborations after that, even outside of the alliance. So people are talking to each other because you become friends, you know each other very well, then you're able to do something outside, not just what the alliance is doing, but more collaborations. Let me get some water.
I would like to take also some questions from the audience, but before that, I have a very important question, I think. How do you manage to support your activities financially, and what are the plans now because Google is out? And also, if you can give us some examples of media organizations that are doing journalism and are still strong as operation, as business, from the business point of view. Because one of the main reasons we've created Ethical Media Alliance, and I'm very happy to see that we share this vision that we cannot save democracy on each of us individually. We need to unite. If you can give us some good practices and examples, maybe we can also apply here.
So the first is the bad news. We are having the same problem. We did not solve it. We don't have a very effective solutions in figuring out funding. Our local businesses, they don't want to get near anything controversial, as I mentioned. Not to mention anything that is against China, because China has huge business in Malaysia, and our businessmen also invest a lot in China. So that is something that is very hard to get them on board. So we are still, a lot of these initiatives are still relying on foreign funding. And now the big techs, they're all pulling out. We are now trying to get funding, like small amount of funding from different embassies, right? But in the Philippines, there are efforts to get the local corporates, especially, I think they are targeting the second generation of very successful enterprises, the younger successors of the family business who has more awareness about democracy and journalism. So they are in the process of talking to these people, right? And then I think we'll hear from them, probably in the next 1 year. I hope there will be some good news from that front, right?
So we are doing better. We have a bank that is a partner for this event.
Yes, this is amazing. I can't imagine any banks in our region will try to do this, because they all have huge business.
So thumbs
interests.
up for ING. Thank you.
Yeah,
but convince others too. We need more banks.
I can talk about some media organizations that has been very successful. So the first one is Malaysia Kini. Kini means now in the Malay language, right? So it's Malaysia Now. It is the first newsroom that I joined. I started my career as a reporter when I was 22 years old. I joined them as a reporter. I stayed there for 8 years. They have been there until, I think now this is their 26th year. So they have been sustainable, relying first on subscription and then later on advertisement. So they hire about 100 full-time employees. So you might think that 100 is not big, right? It's really not a big organization. Okay, 100 is big, which is good. But they are the most visited news website in Malaysia. There are other newsrooms that hire, few hundreds people, but they don't get there. So they are the one that only with 100 people. 100 means including everything: marketing, HR, accounting, everything. Editorial, I think, is about 50 to 60, something like that, right? Yeah, but they built it, in 26 years. When they first started, it was only like 5 people. When I joined them, our team is about 50 people. But now it's 100 people, so you can see that they are growing, okay? And every year in most years, they are in the black, right? They are not making a loss, right?
And what are the main revenue sources they have?
So the business model, right, first is subscription. You have to pay, but have a very smart subscription strategy. We'll come to that later.
So it's subscription, not donations?
Not donation.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
We have a big debate in Romania about the donations.
I'll talk more about that. So I can open up the website. is here. You can see I am their subscriber, yeah. Okay, so the interesting thing is that they have a subscription, they have a paywall. If you pay, you don't see any advertisement, which I like, okay? But you can see that they publish in 4 languages: English, Malay, Chinese, and Tamil. We have about 5% of Indian population in Malaysia, and they speak Tamil. So the English content, news, they are all behind paywall. You need to subscribe to read. Same as Chinese. You have to subscribe to read the Chinese news. Okay? But the Malay version is free. The Malay version is free. You don't have to subscribe and you're able to read everything. And the Malay version, of course, Malay is the largest audience in Malaysia. So you can see they are not strict, hard paywall. It's a very porous paywall. And this is the strategy.
So it's a freemium strategy, basically.
Freemium, you're talking about, if I pay, I will be able to read some, I won't be able to read the others. But this is very different. This is based on language.
Okay.
You pay, if you don't pay, you can't read English and Chinese, but you can read Malay. But the content is all the same. They're just translating to different languages. Okay? So you can see that's very interesting, right? So people who want to support, they pay, and maybe they are more comfortable reading English.
Do you know how much of the revenues is subscription-based?
So,
approximately?
Maybe like 10 years ago, the subscription was about 50%, half of the revenue. Now, they don't want to tell me because it's their commercial secret, but I think it's around 30% because they are doing more advertisement and events. So after they grow bigger, right, they hire more people and they invest in their own ads agency. They also have their own event company to hold event. So if you scroll down, you will actually see there are many different events that they are holding. After news, you'll see here.
How about the public funding? Because it's also a controversial issue in Romania somehow.
The public what?
The public funding, money from the government for fact-checking or for publishing for public interest. What's your take on that?
Okay, so that brings me to another...
because in Romania we have this... I don't agree with this view, but there is this view that if you take some money from the government, you basically writing things to praise the government. So it's a conflict of interest to take money from public sources.
When they first do events for the government, for the ministries, okay, they do some events for the ministries, people criticize them to say that you are selling out because now you are taking money, you are doing business with government. Their response is very easy. They'll say that, okay, we understood your concerns, but just judge us on our reporting. So they continue to be very critical of the government. At the same time, they are getting events from the government. Okay? So after some time, the government also realized that, all right, it is their rights to criticize us as an independent media, but that doesn't mean that we should punish them by not working with them. So the government will still give them, because they are the most visited website, that's number one, right? They have a huge reach. And they don't do entertainment, they don't do sports. Everything is about politics, it's crazy. Everything is politics, every day is politics, and it's a daily news website. And they become the number one. And they are able to beat other news media, which have a lot of entertainment and sports news. Okay? They are only focusing on politics, they are still number one. So that gives you the value that the government, if they want to talk to your readers, and their readers are, of course, the sad story, male, older readers, but also wealthy, right? So these are the people the government want to engage. So when the government want to engage, the government will go through them and to do events with them, right? Mm-hmm. So they tell their critics that, okay, if you want to judge us, you look at our reporting. Okay. So yeah.
Let's take some questions from the audience if there are questions, and try to answer as many as possible, as many as Alexandra will allow us to. Please.
I'm happy to hear into this panel more talk about propaganda and the fact that the part with the news are altered about this propaganda and is not about free speech and things like that. And I think we should really maybe fight, or no, we should necessarily fight this full force. In compensation with the journalist component, that's something specific which I think it needs to be treated, and I think you guys are underlining it very well. In this context, how are you seeing the tech space of products coming from the startup world to support this free journalism in Southeast Asia, or freedom of speech, or the manifestation of freedom of speech?
So I have some other material on the technology part of it.
Are they merging? It's like you start to see cross collaborations between media outlets and the tech scene, because maybe they could engage themselves. And
Christian is involved in tech startups ecosystem as an investor, so yeah, it's an important aspect how we cooperate better. Yeah. With the tech space, because we have to fight tech with tech.
Yep. So just now after the alliance, right? Actually, I wanted to mention also the capacity building, which is you train journalists to use technology to do investigation, but at the same time, you also need your technology infrastructure, and this is where we work with technology companies. So, for example, there are two that I work with personally before. One is the Double Think Lab in Taiwan. So they are very good in terms of monitoring the disinfo coming from China. So we work with them. They train us to understand not just the technology part, but also how propaganda machinery works in China, which agencies are in charge. And when you want to track what is trending, you want to know what are their agenda, you have to check this media, and there are some rankings about which issues goes up. Because in China, everything online is controlled. So by looking at some of those online websites, what is trending, you're able to see what is the agenda of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. So they train us on that. And another technology startup is the Nerve. The Nerve is the technology subsidiary or the arm of Rappler. Right, if you remember that Rappler is the organization started by Maria Ressa, Rappler, and they are so good in monitoring social media. They spin off their social media monitoring team and establish a new, a new company called the Nerve. And they provide social media listening, forensic, online data forensic services to not just journalists, but also private companies. So this is another way that, once you're very good in your technology, you're able to commercialize it and become another revenue. But I'm not sure how successful they are, how much revenue they are able to bring. But we work with them. They provided us with data from social media platforms and also NLP analysis, the natural language processing analysis. So we work with them. Their work is very good. So what I'm trying to say here is that, once you have your people together, right, you should also have your IT infrastructure ready. Because it is not very effective if you investigate something 3 months after it happened. Again, damage has been done, harm has been done, right? You investigate it, it tells you, yeah, this happens, but there's nothing much you can do.
Yeah, I think it's a very important takeaway that in your region you learned already how to cooperate better. We are very fragmented here, and trust is an issue even inside the industry, and also using the technology for that. Other questions? We still have 10 minutes or so.
Maybe you saw this stack growing in the world?
Yes, it is growing in some countries. So, for example, it's not in Malaysia. with Malaysia, we have some civic tech, but they are not growing very good. But we look at Indonesia and the Philippines, they are very good players there. Another one that I would like to introduce you to, it's called Drone Amprit. This is in Indonesia. So they do very similar things, but for Indonesia market, right? They do social media data monitoring, collection, and analysis. Now, they are not just doing for journalists. They first started to do for media. And after that, they found it that this is also, this can be used for other brands and the government as well. So now they are providing the service to government agencies as well.
Okay. Kodruca, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, thank you. I would like to ask you first, if you have some sort of regulations for the social media in Southeast Asia. And I would specifically like to ask, for example, about micro-targeting. Is it okay? Is it allowed?
Okay, on regulations, there's nothing much I can share here because we failed to regulate them. Our government is not even able to get them to talk sometimes. Because first, our market is very small, right? We are almost the same population with Romania. I think we are 33 million people. You guys are about 20.
Yeah, out of the total revenues of social media, Romania is 0.16%. So
Yeah, exactly. So it's very similar to Malaysia. So they don't give any as, when we ask them to do anything. They, I heard in some countries, they even include the tariff negotiation with the US with the non-regulation of US tech companies. So which means if you want to lower your tariff to the US, you have to promise you will not regulate tech companies in your country.
It's the same. Miss Report covered this. The Digital Services Act is being attacked by US through embassies all over Europe. So
yeah. So sorry. Let me just finish. I show you this because this is one initiative. This is IFPIM. IFPIM is International Fund for Public Interest Media. I can't remember the name, right? So this is started by Maria Ressa. And what they are currently doing is they are trying to put together three big, one of the three largest markets, which is South Africa, Brazil, and Indonesia. Indonesia is much bigger than Malaysia. Okay, these three governments to come together to talk about negotiating with tech companies. So this is what now they are doing. Because I was in some of their events. The thinking behind that is that if we are able to get some of the biggest markets for tech companies to come together, it's easier to bring them to the negotiation table, and they are now getting the support of the government as well. So the government basically are behind them. They will have another meeting in Kuala Lumpur during the GIJC 2025, this month later, right? They are working on that front. And one related thing is that, they are also advocating for supporting public interest media as a public infrastructure, which means that government should use taxpayers' money to support public interest media. It should be treated like energy, like water, right? Like, the rights to access internet, the right to access good independent media should be one of the responsibilities of the state. So they are also advocating for that. I know it's controversial in some countries that don't like any public interference in media, but in the global south, we don't get a lot of private funding. So I think this is what we are trying to do in the global south. Yeah.
The reason I'm asking you this is because you were talking before about the elections in Indonesia and in Philippines, and about the campaigns that were ran on social media. And we had a very similar thing in November, because what happened in Romania looks a lot like what happened with the election of Prabowo and Marcos Jr. And this is, let's say, if there would be a company that acts like Cambridge Analytica, is that illegal in South Asia?
I'm not sure about Indonesian and Philippines, but in Malaysia, it is not illegal. We are still working on our online safety bill. We passed a online safety bill, but it has not been enforced. So on the regulation part, I don't think this region is doing any better than other parts of the world. Yeah. But these are the initiatives that I can share, like how they are trying to deal with the big tech, right?
As far as there is possible to do micro-targeting using Google, Facebook, TikTok, or whatever, somehow is always this discussion. It's possible, so it's their job to close this channel if there is any problem. We as an agency or whatever, we doing our job. Yeah, and this.
No, so
yeah, in theory, yeah.
It is totally legal.
In theory, is illegal, but practically speaking, I can tell from our commercial activities that you can do that. So.
But in my region, we don't even have the legal framework to deal with this, like micro-targeting. I don't think so. But that is not their priority. Their priority is now working on, getting the tech company to pay the media. And also now getting the AI company to pay the media for the content used to train their AI, their algorithms. So I think now efforts are going on to do like collective bargaining with the AI companies, because now they are thinking that the next front line, it's the AI companies. We do not want to repeat the same mistakes that we had with social media company, with AI company. So they learned a lot of the lessons in dealing with social media companies, and they want to apply that lessons to deal with AI companies right now. Yeah.
Any other question? And yeah, I'm also curious about that because we also talked last evening if you're rather optimistic or pessimistic about the impact of AI in the misinformation space.
Optimistic or pessimistic? I'm more on the pessimistic side, unfortunately. But I can share with you some of the tools that AI tools that I don't think we are using them in big scale, but we are exploring the use of AI tools. The first one is, of course, you using LLM. You are able to speed up your fact checking, right? Because it's like a research assistant. Okay, and the other thing is that the more exciting thing for me would be, we are able to do data collection much effective with AI tools. For example, the Oxy Labs. This is one organization that I work with. I think they're based in Europe. I'm not very sure, actually. So they have this AI studio, right? That tool, which means that you're able to scrape a website. For example, you want to scrape TikTok or Facebook, right? Without any coding. You just use their tool. It's like you're talking to an LLM. You say, I want to scrape all the posts that has this keyword from this date to this date on this website. Right. So if you communicate with the bots will build a web scraper for you to scrape the data for you. So I think this tells us a lot about how AI can be used to speed up our investigation and our workflow.
As shown in the presentation, we already have more AI-generated content than human-generated content. I think it's impossible for humans to compete with machines. So we need to somehow embrace AI and use it for a good purpose.
The other one that we have been doing is that when we want to do narrative analysis, I found that actually LLM can do a very good job in doing the analysis. For example, in one investigation, we collected all the social media posts, which is in Indonesia. There is a influence operation going on to support a government program. So we collected all the posts from the accounts that we suspected are bots, and then we fit the whole data set to LLM. I think this is Gemini, right? And we tell LLM that, help us to analyze the narrative using the Edmund framing framework And it actually did a very good job. Yeah, of course, this is the prompt that we put in. And we get actually a very good output and also very accurate as well of analysis of a narrative. In the past, when we want to use this, right, we have to use NLP and a lot of processing by experts. We need to work with our technology partners. But in this case, LLM is able to do quite a decent job in doing the narrative analysis. And this is only getting better and better. Yeah. So the other one is that for the content production, I think we all know about this, right? It's that it's easier to use if you use AI tool to make videos, to do captions, things like, and also to repurpose for different platforms. So if you're able to combine the AI tools in your workflow, it helps you to speed up your content production and also your strategy to engage with different audience. So when we do let's say when we do training with different communities, how do we translate? One thing is translate the language. The other thing is that how do we present our content, the training content, in a way that is more friendly to our audience, right? So we use LLM a lot on that to repurpose our content for different audience groups. Yeah, it's very general. It's not very specific, but I hope, that answer your questions.
Any other question? If not, I will be very interested to hear what are the key takeaways you think are important for us. What are the main ideas you think or learnings you think are valuable for Romania also, from your experience?
So again,
give us some advice, share some wisdom.
Again, like I don't want to come in and say that, oh, I know how to fix your problems. I don't know, and we also have a lot of our own problems. But I think it is helpful from what I see is not on the technology part, but it's on the human part. It is helpful when we get together. So in my experience, collaboration is the way forward.
Join ethicalmediaalliance.eu. Advertising.
Programmatic, yeah. Right, so in my experience is when you get people to come together, not just journalists, but you look at, we work with technology partners, we work with NGOs, we work with academics, universities, right? You get different ideas from them as well. And you're able to reach more audiences. That solves not all our problem, but part of our problem. By banding together, you get better bargaining power with the tech companies, with government, with funder, right? And you also get more ideas. But the problem is, the challenge is, how do you manage this group of people? And that is, it's different in different countries, right? You have different kind of history, relationship, but I think that is one thing that, I think is worth investing in to get everyone together to do something together.